Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Greg here, founder of Wrestling Divas, dedicated to highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. I'm excited to be back after a long hiatus to deliver another exclusive interview. Trained by the likes of Jay Lethal and Angelina Love, my next special guest has been wrestling since 2015 for the likes of Shine Wrestling. Most people, however, know her as the manager of Maxwell Jacob Friedman, AEW's MJF in MLW. So I'd like to welcome my next special guest, Aria Blake. Hi, Aria. Thanks for joining me. Happy New Year. I appreciate your time.
Hi, thank you for having me. Happy 2020.
So, for people who are unfamiliar with your career, let's go back to the beginning. I've read that you originally got in love with professional wrestling through attending your first indie wrestling event, and I'm very intrigued by that because I feel especially for a lot of younger girls that you were at the time because you were, a teenager, that would have been a turnoff to the industry because of the violence and, not a lot of females are into wrestling these days. So what about the event made you hypnotized by professional wrestling and made you want to become a fan or a worker, excuse me?
So to go back even a little further, I have been watching wrestling for now I'd say like 13 years. So I started, and that's probably, like 13-ish. I had been a fan just because my brother was watching at the time. So I happened to just be in his room one night while it was on, and it really captivated me. And then a few years later, when I was 18, I saw a local company nearby looking for a ring girl. And I'm like, well, this is a foot in the door at least. So I talked to them for a bit. It was called Uproar Pro Wrestling. Did, I think, 2 or 3 shows with them just as the ring girl. And then one show, Jay Lethal came in and spoke with the Uproar Pro Wrestling owner. They decided that they were going to open a wrestling school together with Jay as the head trainer. And I was, as the ring girl there, I was the first student to sign up for that school.
Oh, fantastic. And so Jay Lethal has a very storied career, and you are also trained and mentored by Angelina Love. So when you announced to your parents that you wanted to pursue this seriously, what was their reaction? Because, again, you were a teenager at the time. This is when, most people go to college, and you eventually did do that. But I can imagine that there must have been a little bit of a surprise reaction by them. Were they supportive of it? And because I've interviewed people who said, I had to lie about me training in wrestling and just say that I was going to college at the time. How was their reaction to that?
So I went to college straight out of high school, so my parents didn't necessarily expect me to also do wrestling training at the same time. It was very hard, but I did it. And when I first told them I was going to start doing wrestling, my dad's supportive, but my mom is like, why am I paying for you to go to college if you're just going to go wrestle? And she wasn't unsupportive, but just concerned because I'm her child, of course, and concerned about my teeth
Right.
and my well-being. But they were very supportive. They came to my very first match, which was, I think, 6 years ago to the date, almost, or 5 years ago to the day almost. It was end of January. But they were very supportive. They're still very supportive. They love what I do. They show all their friends videos. They have my shirts. It's cute.
So you were trained by Jay Lethal, and of course, I think you entered the business at a time when women's wrestling was definitely at an upswing in terms of, attention and really focusing on highlighting what females can do over guys and really not having it be this kind of sideshow, afterthought. But I feel like, especially in training, when there's no cameras involved and when you're just trying to make a name for yourself, there still is this double standard, when you're a female entering, a male-dominated world. And so when you went through your first day of training, what was that atmosphere like for you to enter through the doors? Were you welcome? Did you have a lot to prove to yourself? Did you feel that there was kind of a double standard, and not to say that negatively so much in the sense of people rejecting you, but, certainly there is an aesthetic quality to female wrestling that I still think exists.
So my first day was awesome. I had already known Jay because I met him at those Uproar shows. Sorry if you hear background noise. My dogs are running around. So I'd already met him, so we were good. When I started, it was myself, Ronnie Rios, who I had already knew just from, mutual friends before wrestling. I was the one that told him about the school, so I was already cool with him. It started with another guy named Tom, who I don't think is in the industry anymore. He moved back up north. Alex Payne, who sadly has passed, but ended up being one of my best friends. And Aspen Rose, who is another female wrestler, so it was nice to have her. We were about the same size, so we instantly became friends, and everything that we would learn, we would do on each other. We would do it on the guys, too. But it was really fun having that small class to begin with. It felt like we got special, one-on-one attention if we needed it. We got to learn whatever we wanted. And then about 3 months later, the second class came in, and it was all guys, and they're all my best friends, and my boyfriend, Hunter Law, Troy Hollywood, Snoop Strike. They all joined us a couple months later, and we became one big happy family. So I've never felt that gender in my school, at least, had anything to do with my training, my progress, whatever. I was kind of treated like one of the boys the whole time. So I felt like it was pretty equal.
Oh, that's great to hear because, especially I think back in the day that wasn't necessarily the case, but there's been positive steps to be, seen in equal light, which, something that I've been wanting to do and see more of since I started the website so many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of being mentored by Angelina Love, you've said that she really taught you the ins and outs of not only some things in wrestling and what to do in the ring, because she's very well known for having a character and being a very good storyteller in that sense, but also outside of the ring in terms of what to look for, who to avoid, what red flags are, because at the end of the day, the industry is a business, and not every aspect of the business is run professionally or with the person's best interest in mind. So is there any piece of advice that she gave you that really sticks out to you in terms of being aware of everyone's business sense?
I have learned so much from her, and it has really been an honor to learn under her because I had been a fan of her for so long. The first day she showed up at our school, I was like, holy crap, I can't believe she's even here right now. But so she's like my wrestling mom. I look up to her not just as a performer, but as a person. The most important thing I learned from her, I guess, was just, I know this now, but when I first started out, just to really keep an eye out for creeps. Unfortunately, like you said, there's people that don't handle business professionally. There's people who are predators, and unfortunately, they will go after younger girls that are green and don't really know anything about the business yet. So she's just kind of smartened Aspen and I up one day on, you need to make sure you're taking care of your business with people you know and trust. Always ask other vets if you need to for any advice, or if you need a background on somebody that's trying to do work with you. She's really just got so much experience in just so many different parts of wrestling that really helped Aspen and I.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, too, for her to be such a well-known name in the industry for so long and sustain the popularity with the beautiful people really speaks to how intelligent she is. Now, going to the physical side of wrestling, it's great to see that, you were accepted by your peers and you've really never had any issues in your training or anything like that. But going to the physical side, how is it getting used to the demands of wrestling? Because I feel like, and I've been to wrestling schools and I've seen this, that being in gym shape is totally different than being in ring shape because you constantly have to change up your cardio speed. You can be the toughest guy in the room and be really jacked, but you're constantly going from one pace to the other, which is exhausting. So how is that getting used to the physicality for you? Did you find it really challenging at all? Was it a process of growing pains?
I'd kind of say the process of growing pains is pretty accurate. Even hitting the ropes, like, you're not going to think it's going to hurt as badly as it does the first time, and then you go home and you have bruises like along your ribs and your back. But it was, so the cardio part, like, I was kind of okay with because I've played soccer for so many years, so I'm used to running around back and forth, and cheerleading was also really a big part of my background, so that whole just cardio of that really helped with wrestling, really helps with like having to think on your feet, run, show emotion at the same time, all of that in one. Cheerleading and wrestling are pretty similar like that. But I had always been into being fit, going to the gym since I was like 12, and like Lifestyle Family Fitness would offer kids like free summer vacation, or not vacation, free summer gym passes. So I found wrestling kind of definitely not easy, but the cardio part I could handle.
So lending itself to, the background in sports that you did, and the cheerleading, of course, as you said, would help you out with cardio. As far as understanding the psychology of professional wrestling, I feel like that's the most difficult part, because you have to understand how to relate to the crowd, when to do certain things, not only in the sense of building your character, but understanding that every bump you take has a toll on your body, and you have to figure out kind of where and when to do things for the sake of resource management for your body. Was that a difficult process for you to learn? I'm sure, like everyone else, you're still learning in that process of perfecting what you know. But what was that process like, and how was Jay and Angelina in the explanation of that?
I'm certainly still learning more about psychology each and every day, every match. It's something that I feel like you never stop learning. There's so many different interpretations of psychology. What I learned was just a lot of, like what you said, with crowd work, just engaging with the crowd, connecting with them, getting yourself over as whatever you're trying to be. That's become one of my favorite parts of it, actually, is just working with the crowd, seeing the different emotions I can pull out of people, whether it be good or bad. I really think that psychology is more important than the move sometimes. You can do all the flashy stuff you want, but if it doesn't make sense, then it kind of just isn't all there to me. It's not all wrestling. So I don't know. I think psychology is extremely, extremely important, and my trainers really instilled that in us. They know how to tell stories, of course. So I think that at our school, it was about learning that as well as in-ring stuff. It wasn't just like we went there and learned, okay, do a bunch of different moves and hit the ropes a million times. Like, we would sit down, study tape, cut promos, like have different guest trainers come in and lecture us on things like psychology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Al Snow said in an interview that it's all about having the crowd invest into who you are and why you're doing what you're doing instead of what you're actually doing, because very few people can relate to being in a wrestling ring. And so this segues into my next point of there are a lot of promotions opening up. You're best known for MLW and managing MJF, who's currently one of my favorite, if not my favorite heel in professional wrestling. I think one of the most brilliant things that he's been able to do is keep the idea of kayfabe alive. So you never really know how much of his character is actually him, because he keeps it going everywhere he goes, even in public. So working with him in that type of setting, because MLW has a lot of TV production involved, and I know Selena De La Renta is a producer there, and she talks about that. How much of wrestling should be seen in the light of entertainment in terms of character value as opposed to physicality? Because this is a big debate over the business, how much of wrestling is sport versus entertainment. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that MLW does a really great job of showcasing characters as well as in-ring. Sorry, can you hear me? I just hit my mute button.
Oh, no, it's no problem.
Okay, sorry, my finger slipped. But like I was saying, I think that MLW does a great job with showing character and in-ring physicality. Like there's so many different parts of the show. It's not just ring, ring, ring. We have promos, we have interview segments, we have fun little adventures like with the Dynasty. So I think that character-wise, it's really good to get to know your wrestlers. You want to know who you're booing for, you're cheering for. Should you be showing as much emotion as you should be in this person and be as invested as you are?
Absolutely, and I think MLW does have a good mix of that. I think we're starting to see some character development in AEW in terms of them building up their own stars, which is great. I think MJF is definitely going to make a name for himself, even more so in that company. So being paired with him, what was it like working with him as his manager in terms of the dynamics between the both of you? Because I'm sure you found a way and a groove to work off of each other, and I think he's brilliant in terms of his character work. He really knows how to draw heat. He's, risen very quickly in the business. What was it like working with him, and how did you find your groove with him in terms of how to be his on-screen girlfriend?
So I have known him for a little while, which helps. When we first started, I was paired with Joey Janela, and Max kept trying to get me from him, take me away, whatever. So that was fun, going back and forth. And then as our characters kind of caught feelings for each other, it was so fun working with him. Like, it's easy. Because his personality that you guys see is akin to his real life personality in a way. I don't know. I think that I have a different perspective on things. I did learn a lot from him, some character stuff, the importance of staying as the character people believe you are in all situations. I think that we meshed really well. I think that the inclusion of Richard Holiday and Alex Hammerstone really helped us too, really made the whole group mesh well. And I love them all. Like, I learned so much from them, and I wouldn't trade my experiences with them.
Yeah, so, now that he's kind of moved on to AEW, and there's that, and there's definitely opportunities open up in WWE. I'm really glad to see Mercedes Martinez there. I think she's deserved to be there for quite a long time. And there's just a lot of opportunities opening up for people in wrestling in general, just because of the way social media is and people getting reinvested into it. There's more competition, so I think this is a great time to be a wrestling fan, as opposed to back in the day when you had to trade tapes and not really know what's going on. What's next for you? Because I'm sure that you have a lot of goals still in wrestling. You're still pretty young in your career, although you've made a big impact. Where would you like to see yourself go?
I used to have one concrete plan that I wanted to end up in a certain company, and that was kind of my be-all, end-all. But now that I've had my experiences both on the independents and at MLW, I don't even know what I want. I would love to go to a place like AEW and do whatever I can. But I'm also really open to just traveling and learning as much as I can all over the world. I would love to go to England, Japan, Mexico, Australia, anywhere I can to just better my craft. I would love to be on a grander stage, and I'm kind of about to be a free agent, so hopefully that can be something I manifest by the end of 2020.
Absolutely, and I think you have a bright future ahead of you. So I think heading into the future and kind of looking back, too, at what you've been able to accomplish, I mean, if you could go back in time, hypothetically, to talk to your younger self who was just starting in the business or entering her first day of wrestling school, what would you talk about? I mean, how has being a wrestler for about, 4 or 5 years affected you mentally and physically? Is there anything that you would say to your younger self to really drive a certain message home?
I would tell my younger self that no matter what, don't get discouraged because, like you said, these opportunities just popped up out of nowhere, really. Even when I first started a few years ago, we didn't have all these different companies that we could go to, these different TV shows we could be on. So I would just tell my younger self, just stay positive, keep your head up, because you're going to do a lot of great stuff that you don't even know is there yet.
And this is one of my most favorite questions to ask, and it's probably a tradition at this point because I've asked almost everybody. If you could explain your wrestling career using just one word, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
I know, toughest question ever, no pressure.
Yeah. Bratty.
So that's definitely paying homage to your character, and I love it.
Yes.
So I know that you're very active on social media. You have, I think, a Patreon account. You're constantly posting things and keeping up a presence, which is very important these days to kind of continue to get your name out there. How can people contact you seriously for any sort of bookings? I'm sure you're open to things outside of wrestling, like acting opportunities, modeling, things of that nature. And how can fans get in contact with you as well?
So my email address for all business inquiries, bookings, whatever, is AriaBlakeBookings@yahoo.com. It's all one word. My Instagram is TheAriaBlake. My Facebook is facebook.com/TheAriaBlake. My Twitter is I'm Aria Blake. That's the only one that's different. And then I do have a Patreon that, like the others, is patreon.com/TheAriaBlake.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Aria. You're my first interview of the new year, and I've appreciated learning from you and also listening to you in your career. And I think 2020 is going to be a landmark year in what you've been able to do and to build upon your impressive resume. It's not often that, I get guests who are very as engaged as you are in terms of being honest with what you've been able to accomplish and your insight. So I do appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best of luck in 2020.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome, and best to you.
Thanks to everyone else for listening. Be sure to follow Wrestling Divas on Twitter at Wrestling Divas with the Z at the end. Also check out the website, which is www.wrestling-divas.webs.com for more exclusive content.